Thank you for everyone for attending all of our Autoworkz Insight sessions. This is our last session for 2020, the summer. We're excited that we went this long. We will see you again in September. But before we leave, we're excited to have our final speaker. Her name is Priscilla Archangel. And I think it's kind of funny because her title goes with her name, from job to career to calling. Tell me a little bit how that came to be.
So really this comes from as I look back over my own career and saw how the work that I did evolved and really looked at just a number of professionals that I know as well. Many of us start out with a job, which is just something that we can do, something we're capable of doing. We look for a career, but what we really should pursue is a calling. And so that's what I'm going to get into in more detail when we get into the presentation. I can't wait to share it.
Tell me what's the difference between the three? You know, what's the difference between job, or career, and a calling?
So it's all in the presentation, and I'd love to jump into it and share it with you.
Okay, great.
All right. Great. So I'm going to share my screen then.
Go ahead.
As soon as you enable it, as soon as you enable.
Oh, it's not.
Share my
screen. I thought I had.
Okay. And I love your acronym about ripening, reflection on the current situation, innovation and invention of new products, planning one's future, and execution of the plan daily, because I think it's appropriate and it can be used effectively in what we're doing now.
And it's funny you should say that, because I actually woke up one morning with that acronym. It just came to me and I was like, wow, because our students were struggling getting through the material through the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And I prayed about it. And then I woke up that morning and said, oh, that's awesome. That's brilliant. And
that's good.
It came to me.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right. So I'm going to, let's see. I'm just, now of course my PowerPoint wants to start acting up. But we're going to get it to work here. All right. So just to share a little bit about my background too. I'm an entrepreneur at a late stage in life. You know, some people grow up thinking they want to own their own business, and some people have, you know, wonderful thoughts of all the freedom that it will give them, okay? And I came to entrepreneurship late in life.
When you say late, what do you mean?
I mean, I was 50, I got to think how old I am. I was 52 when I became an entrepreneur, okay?
Okay.
I had worked for 30 years in corporate America. Had a wonderful career at, you know, one of the local automotive companies here, and enjoyed that thoroughly. And then from there, I decided after 30 years, I wanted to retire and start my own business.
Wow, that's great. You know, they said the most effective businesses are started by people over 50.
Oh, good, 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 good.
The entrepreneurship now that we're seeing is they skew it young, but that's a new phenomenon.
Mm-hmm. Well, I certainly did that. And what it afforded me, though, was a lot of experience to be able to understand, get the experience that I needed to run my business, quite frankly, get some of the financial resources that I needed to be able to run my business, and also know exactly what I needed to be able to do in my business, all right? Mm-hmm. So that was the benefit for me in my business. So it's just, it's been a blessing to me, and it's afforded me the opportunity to do the things that I love the most. So, great. And so as you see, all of a sudden my screen started wanting to act up, but I think I've got it going correctly now.
It looks like it. Great.
Great. All right. So, first of all, and Ida, do me a favor, and if you see any questions in the chat box, just let me know. I'm going to invite people to just ask me questions as I go along. If
Sounds great.
if you also want to just share share and tell me more about what you're doing in your work, what your challenges are in your work, just feel free to drop it in the chat box, and Ida, you can share as we go along.
Sounds
But
great.
one of the things that I think that we're all looking for is our dream job, okay? Now, some of us think we know what it is. Some of us are still trying to figure out what it is, but kind of like a unicorn, you know, that elusive thing, it's trying to figure out, wow, what's a job that I can make lots and lots of money and I can love what I do and, you know, wake up every morning excited to go to work. And sometimes we look over at people around us and say, oh, that person over there seems to like their job, and this person over there seems to really love their job. That's what I want. That's what I want. But it can become this elusive thing if we don't know how to begin to figure out what that is. And so what I suggest to everyone is that that wonderful job that we're all desiring is purely based upon our why, okay? So there's a saying that is attributable to Mark Twain: the two most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why.
Oh, wow. That's a great quote.
Okay. Now just think how impactful that is. You know, the day you first come on this earth, and then, you know, when do you figure out your reason for being here? All right. And then another one of my favorite authors, John Maxwell: when you find your why, you'll find your way.
Now, I
Right?
totally agree with that quote. Yes.
Okay, you can probably think of examples in your own life, Ida, when you figured out your why, and then that just paved the direction for now, what is it I need to do next? And that, quite frankly, is what we're all working through in our lives. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about my experience. First of all, I heard somebody say on the radio several years back that, you know, your purpose and your passion is all linked to things you were doing as a teenager. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was a teenager, I didn't think I was doing anything meaningful. I was just, you know, trying to figure life out or have fun or whatever, okay? But I started to think about it, and I realized that there were 4 things that I was doing as a teenager that were particularly relevant to me and important to me and my purpose and what I'm doing now. And so I'll share those with you. So one was speaking. All right. And so when I was a senior in high school, my aunt told me about the Junior Miss Michigan pageant. All right. Only available to high school seniors. And so I applied and was accepted to be in the pageant. And as part of the pageant, what I had to figure out was, what am I going to do as my talent? So I don't play the piano well enough. I don't sing well enough. I don't dance well enough. Those are kind of like the typical things that you do in a pageant. So I said, instead, I will do a dramatic reading. And so I enlisted the help of a drama coach in my high school, and she, you know, helped me find the right reading to do. And so think of standing in front of a group of people, speaking in a way that challenges them and motivates them. That's what I was doing. And I loved it. I kind of got a little bit of a rush as I was doing it, all right? Fast forward today, one of the things that I do, and my practice now is leadership development, consulting, coaching, speaking, writing, all of that. And so I am a speaker now to groups and organizations, and, you know, very similar to this webinar right here, on leadership development topics. And I love standing up in front of a group of people and speaking to them in a way that motivates them. I facilitate training, lots of things like that. So that's one thing. Another thing that I was doing was when I was about 14 or 15, I decided to somehow write down what the books of 1st and 2nd Corinthians in the Bible meant to me. Nobody told me to do it. It was a pure teenager interpretation. Okay, so don't put a whole lot of stock in whatever I said, but it was how ideas were forming in my mind. Fast forward, and about 10 or 15 years ago, I started writing leadership lessons from a faith-based perspective. And that turned into a book that I've written, The Call to Faith-Centered Leadership. And so it's 90 lessons on leadership from a faith-based perspective. But I was writing as a teenager, and about 15 years ago, I picked up writing again from the standpoint of developing and sharing ideas. Another thing I was doing as a teenager, when I was a freshman in college, I majored in psychology. I thought I wanted to be a therapist. Now, the good news is that I did an internship along the way and figured out and set in on some therapy sessions and figured out I was not as gifted as I needed to be a good therapist, okay? I'm good as long as there is not a formal diagnosis, okay? So instead I said, well, I know, and really after that, I kind of pivoted a little bit and ended up working in HR at General Motors and found out that as part of that role, hey, I'm coaching people all the time. Formally, informally, I'm coaching people to.
It's like a therapist.
Absolutely, okay? It's just the challenges are not as significant or acute, which meant that I was capable of handling it, okay? Mm-hmm. But it was the exact same thing. And now in my work, I coach leaders, okay? And so it's noon right now here in the Detroit area. I've already had 2 coaching meetings this morning with clients, okay? Love that. Love helping them discover their greatness and pursue their purpose and their passion. And then the other thing that I was doing as a teenager was, first of all during high school, I worked in a small company and doing office work. But that office work helped me understand organization and processes. And then in college, I was the business manager for a singing group. And again, processes, administration. And so to this day, there's a part of me that loves understanding what's the process, what's the business process, how is everything organized, how are things being administered. And so as I work with a variety of clients and a variety of companies, it helps me to grasp, how is this company organized? What's the work they do? What's the process of the work? How do they make money? All right. All of this played a role. And again, I thought about that advice. What are you doing as a teenager and how is it relevant in your life now? And for me, at least, it was true. And so I'll challenge your listeners to think about those things that really interested them as a teenager. And so my point in all of this is finding your purpose is that sweet spot dead in the middle of your passion, your mission, your vocation, and your profession. So think about things that you love. Think about things that the world needs. Think about things that you're great at and you can get paid for. That's the key for most people. Can I get paid for doing it? Okay. And so that kind of forms the circle that envelops what is your purpose in life. Now, for most people, this is not going to be one of those, oh, I'll wake up in the morning and it will be clear as mud, to me, and I'll know exactly what my purpose is and exactly what I'm supposed to do. For most people, it is an evolving process, okay? Probably, I got to think how old I am now, probably 25 years ago, I developed an interest in leadership in particular, understanding leaders, how they behave, how they're effective and how they're less effective, what are the capabilities that make people good leaders. And so as I pursued my PhD, I studied leadership. In all my corporate roles, I was always looking at things from a leadership angle and lens. And so now in my work as a leadership development consultant, that's what I focus on. My purpose is developing successful leaders. And I do it through coaching, consulting, facilitating learning, speaking, and writing, okay? So that's what I discovered as my purpose. Now, the pathway here was I had to really think through the experiences that I was having. And again, what do I love? What does the world need? What am I great at? What can I get paid for? And that all came together for me. But the other thing that really helped it come together was, quite frankly, in 2000, December of 2000, so it's almost 20 years ago, I was sitting one morning in my quiet place doing my prayer and meditation, and literally God downloaded on me things that I would be doing in the future. And all I could do was write it down as fast as I possibly could, just to try to keep up with what I heard God's Spirit saying to me. And then I just looked at it what do I do with it now? Because it was bigger than my mind could grasp. But what I found is bit by bit, things started happening, things started falling in place, so that now at this point in my life, I am in my purpose. And the purpose is the aim or goal of a person, what you're trying to become, the driver that propels us through life, gives meaning to our existence. It's the reason we exist, okay? So what I'm also saying is the reason I exist is not just for my personal pleasure, my personal gain, just to have fun, to do whatever I want to. Life in the world is not just about me. Life in the world is about how am I helping others? What am I doing that lifts others up, that helps others to grow and develop, that helps others to learn? What's my purpose, okay? As I sit here talking to you, I'll grab something on my desk. This is it's really a teacup. I drink tea, not coffee, okay? It exists for the purpose of holding a hot beverage and enough of it, because this is a bigger one, so that I can drink it and I can enjoy it, all right? My mouse exists for the purpose of helping me control my laptop. Everything has a purpose. The creator of those objects made them a certain way for a purpose. Even made the mouse that is, ergonomically correct so that my hand can grip it just, in a very comfortable way. I believe that we were each made by God in a special way with special skills, special abilities for a certain purpose to be achieved. And again, the two biggest days in our lives are the day we're born and the day we find out why. So that's important, understanding your purpose. The other important thing is understanding what you are really passionate about, okay? So passion is kind of the outward manifestation of purpose. It's the emotional counterpart that points us to the heart of who we are. It's visible about our strongest beliefs, and it gives voice to our purpose. So one thing that happens is, for instance, at what I fully expect at the end of this presentation today, when we finally sign off, I'll settle down, but I'll have this rush, okay, this emotional rush of, wow, I enjoyed that. I love that, because I'm passionate about communicating with people, sharing what I know about leadership and purpose and mission and vision, and understanding who you are and being your best. And I get a level of excitement about it, because this is kind of like the outward manifestation of my purpose. It's a visible display of the purpose for which I have been created, all right? I continue to write now, and so I write a monthly leadership insight that I send to friends and colleagues. And if anyone's interested in reading it, all you have to do is go to my website and sign up, PriscillaArchangel.com, and you can sign up there. But I get a rush when I write my monthly insight, my leadership insight, because I have images of who it may help and who may benefit from it. Just the process of thinking through what I'm going to say. And quite honestly, it's an inspirational moment every month when I think about, all right, what's my topic? What is it I want to say to people? What have I been experiencing, quite frankly, over the past month? And what's been on my heart over the past month that I feel is important to share with people? I get a passionate rush from that. And so that's my passion on display. So if you see in the picture this guy jumping up and down for joy and jumping up and down with glee, that's how I feel when I do it. So then that goes to, what is your work, all right? Now, some of you may be early in your careers. You might say, well, I have a job. Others might say, well, I've been doing this for a while. I think it's a career. And then hopefully more and more of you will say it's a calling. But what's the difference? In a job, you're basically working for the money. So I will tell you that jobs I had, quite frankly, during high school and college, it was really just a job. I was working for the money. Now, I didn't hate it or dislike it in any way, but it was partly I was too young to realize the significance of what I was doing in terms of, is it something I'm really passionate about? And I was doing it because, hey, I need to make some money. It's something I'm capable of doing. So, I'll do this. But then you move into a career, hopefully, where you're working for recognition, okay? And, all of us like recognition. You're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're an attorney, you're an entrepreneur, you're an engineer, you're a whatever, okay? We like that recognition. But working for a calling is something that is bigger than yourself. And this next chart, it might look a little busy, but let me explain it to you, because this takes you through some different definitions of what's the difference between a job and a career and a calling. So you see now eye to eye. I didn't want to answer your question totally at the beginning of the presentation because I knew I had a lot of deep stuff in here. So what's your conception of time? If you have a job, you're just putting in your time. Okay, I got to work 8 hours today. As soon as I'm done, I'm gone. Mm-hmm. With your career, whatever time it takes to get the job done, you're going to do it. In my career at GM, I worked 10 and 12-hour days. I worked on weekends. I worked on the evenings. What did it take to get the job done? But now that I'm in my calling, time flies because I'm having fun. And I don't really count the hours. I was talking with someone this morning who asked me, because I was in the process of setting up a meeting with this person I'd offered Friday, okay? And so he was kind of joking with me like, why would you be working on a Friday? And so, other than the fact that we're on kind of COVID lockdown, in my mind at least still, I can't go places I would really want to go. It's like, so I don't mind working tomorrow on a Friday because work is fun. It's enjoyable. So my conception of time is it's not an issue. So now look at your skills and abilities. With a job, it's, are you able to perform the work? But with a career, you get specific skills and training to perform the work and to grow in the work, okay? With a calling, you're gifted. And that doesn't mean you don't use the things that you've trained for, okay? But you also have a gifting to do it that is unlike anything else. Just like I said, I didn't have a gifting to be a therapist. The good news is I realized that early on. Is this making sense, Ida?
It is, because, it's funny you should say that, because I'll never forget, must have been 21, maybe, 21. And I said, you know what? I just want to help people financially. I didn't know what that meant. I said it, 21, right? But at the time I was in HR. Then I left there and went into finances, and I left finances and went into something else. But the common theme for my whole lifespan is to assist people financially. It's come from different perspectives, in different careers and different places, but the mission has remained exactly the same.
That's good. That is absolutely wonderful. And sometimes it's not so much as, ooh, I'm an HR person or I'm a finance person, but it's how you want to impact people's lives.
Exactly.
That's good. That's a great example. Great. So then we look at the assignments. If you have a job, today you might be working at Burger King. Tomorrow you might be working at Amazon. The next day you might be working at Whole Foods, okay? All good jobs, but typically it's a job. It can be varied what you're doing. When you have a career, it's increasing or expanding expertise and responsibility in the same area. So I grew over time in my responsibility in HR from entry level to a global HR director over various areas of the business at GM. I had accumulated a mass of expertise in that area in my career. But my calling now is aligned around a specific goal, and that of developing successful leaders. So it's a difference. It's like you develop your career to a point, and then you coalesce around, because quite frankly, this was the favorite part of all the work that I did in my career. All right. No matter what job I was in, I was always gravitating to the leadership aspects of it. Okay. So, there are certain things I would take on, and there are other things I let my team do because I liked leaders and I liked organizational development and all like that. So it was all aligned around a specific goal. And then during your off hours, typically if you have a job, you won't do anything associated with your work. If you have a career, you will do some activities that do support it. But with a calling, there's no such thing as off hours. Everything is on. So what do I love to do on a Sunday afternoon when one would say I shouldn't be working? I sit down in my favorite chair and I have my reading, my leadership development topics that I'm reading because I enjoy it, because I love it. What do I do when I'm on vacation? Maybe sitting by the pool. I have reading on leadership development topics because it's not work, it's fun, it's enjoyable. So I do it during my off hours. Have you ever done anything like that, Ida?
Oh, constantly. I don't have off hours. I tell
See?
people, and I haven't in years. And the thing is, and it's funny, you don't realize it until you see other people do it, that sometimes you do need off hours, but I don't know how to turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
Things come to me, and as they come, I go, I need to research that. Or as they come, I need to expand that. And you just never know what comes. Like I remember on one New Year's Eve, this board game dropped in my spirit. I went, and I wrote it down. I said, I'll get back to that tomorrow. Now it's New Year's the next day. That's officially a holiday, right?
Uh-huh.
So I get up that morning, I cook my kids breakfast, and then I said, don't disturb me for a couple hours. They said, what you doing? I said, I'm working on this board game. They just chuckled because they gotten accustomed to this, right?
Okay.
Went on. Most people thought I was insane. I'm not insane. I just am never off.
And you probably had great fun developing it then.
I did actually, and then when the game went on Amazon, and then I sold it to some school districts in Pittsburgh and a couple of after-school programs. It was just exciting, all because I had heard something in the classroom that kind of piqued my interest. Didn't like what I hear. I said, I need to fix that, and then subconsciously my system, my brain fixed it with this dropping this in my spirit to create a board game. So I'm always on because you never know when those inspirations come. You just never know.
And it's like, take it and run with it when you got it.
Exactly.
Run with it.
And so, and I'd say that a lot of times people miss that inspiration because they do turn themselves off, because you never know when things come. And I have to laugh because this Autoworkz Insights is one of those things. One of my mentors was Sam Logan of the Michigan Chronicle, and him and I would have a lot of discussions. I would meet him once a week, give some inspiration on some articles. And I remember he said to me one day, he says, you know what, you need to have a talk show. And I started laughing. I said, and what would you call it? He says, just Ida. I says, what do you mean? I know, he says, just the word Ida. You should be like Oprah.
Oh, cool.
And he planted that in my spirit. That was like 15 years ago, right?
Wow.
So I said to put it on my list. Eventually I'm gonna get to it. And then when this happened, here I am kind of sort of being a show host. And I said, you know what? I need to do this on a higher level and find a TV station who wants to do a show. So eventually we will. But I'm never off because inspiration, you don't know when it strikes.
So the other thing I'm hearing is a seed was planted, and see, none of us can anticipate when that seed will be planted, but we got to recognize when it is and then nurture it. Because just because it was planted doesn't mean that you needed to go off the next day and try to make it happen. That's one of the other things that entrepreneurs sometimes mistakenly do. They get a bright idea and they try to wrap it all up and do it right away, but it's not time yet. Sometimes seeds need to germinate. You need to gain experience. You need to gain exposure. You need to meet other people who will help you make your dream come true. And then 15 years later, like you said, it's time. For me, probably 13 years later when I started it, but now it's 20 years later and it's, just continuing to grow and grow. But timing is everything. That's really important.
And it's funny you should say that, because one of the things that I teach in one of the classes I do is that you should write down every goal that you want to do in life, whether you're going to do it right now or later, because you never know when the subconscious says it's time. Like I remember I was sitting at a dinner party, and I was actually in the financial planning room. I managed a wealth management firm. Someone said, you should do this alternative school. And I looked at them like, but why? I'm making lots of money in wealth management. Why would I want to stop that to do that? That makes no sense to me, right? But they didn't know that they were checking into my calling, because part of my calling was education. But my thing is I was going to do it on the side. I wasn't going to do it as a career because I'm making too much money at this career. And I'll get to it eventually. It's just not on my list right now. And so the person kept pressing. They must have pressed me for 3 years, off and on for 3 years, right? So eventually I said, okay, I'll do it. And so I went to the school district, and ironically, they gave me a contract. So you just never know when timing hits. You just happen to be in the right place at the right time. But if it's on your list, then you'll get to it. Now, what the person who kept hounding me did not know, on my list, I wanted to own a boarding school.
Oh.
Now, they didn't know that because I never shared it. They just happened to play into that role because when the timing happens, things, the trigger presses, to get you to move, to let you know when the time happens.
Sure.
But you have to be sensitive to hear when that trigger pops.
Yes. Yes. So I like your example of you were in wealth management, you were making lots of money. Why should you go doing something different? Because that plays into the next one, fear. With a job, you fear losing a job as a source of income. With a career, you fear losing it as a source of accomplishment. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, again, I was just talking with a client this morning, you know, the title, the compensation that this particular client was looking for. And so there's sometimes when you transition from a career to calling, you have to be willing to risk that, okay? Because the calling, your fear is not fulfilling it. That's your biggest fear with a calling, is not fulfilling your calling. So not having your boarding school, or not being able to do your talk show, okay? As opposed to just losing income. And so that's sometimes a tricky area to traverse. And that's sometimes also what holds leaders back. I mean, even for me, you know, I was, you know, very well positioned financially at the time at GM. And this was a leap of faith to go and start your own business doing something, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But again, at some point it just calls you. Maslow's hierarchy, and if you're not familiar with Maslow, he's kind of a behavioral scientist. And he talks about, you know, our basic needs are safety and security. And that's typically what we get with a job. But when we get a career, we're meeting those recognition needs. And then when we get a calling, we're meeting the self-actualization need, farther up on the hierarchy, okay? Now, since we're kind of in the middle of COVID-19 right now, frankly, many of us have reverted to, are we getting safety and security needs met, okay? I mean, going to the grocery store, trying to get groceries, you know, trying to stay safe, you know, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But from a career standpoint, it's all about gaining self-actualization. And then our communication. With a job, we may not have a voice. I mean, you know, someone may ask us what we think about our work, but our voice is not as powerful. In our career, our voice is that of the company often. The company wants us to do this. This is the company's plan. This is the company's process. This is the company's beliefs and values. But with a calling, it's our voice. So, you know, I also distinctly remember that one of the reasons I wanted to have my own consulting practice is because I wanted to do things kind of the way I wanted to do it. And it wasn't that anything was bad about the way I was doing it in my career, but I had some things that I wanted to bring forward that represented me and my priorities. And when I worked for a company, I had to make sure I represented their priorities. That's what they were paying me to do. Okay. So does that make sense, Ida?
Yeah, it does. It does. But you know, but you can do some of your calling even in a career or with a company.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
No,
absolutely, absolutely.
because everybody's not as suited to do entrepreneurship. I say that that's like
Yes.
5%
So
of the population.
so you are absolutely right. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I do not want anyone to leave this, you know, this conversation thinking that I'm encouraging people to entrepreneurship. I am not. It is not for everyone. I'll tell you a couple of my pros and cons in a minute. Okay. It is not for everyone, but your calling is for everyone. And it's just a matter of how you do it. Okay. And where you do it, and making sure there's alignment with the organization that you're working in. Okay. So that's a really great point. And then the work process. In a job, you typically follows other people's established processes. In a career, you have an input to the process and objectives. And with your calling, you get to lead them. Because again, it's an area of your passion, your purpose, and your expertise. So what do you think about that whole list, Ida?
I think that's good. You know, I do believe that people should have a calling and that they should follow what they're gifted to work in. But I think that a lot of times people don't know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're so occupied with trying to provide for your families, you don't really think about the difference between the three. You go get a job, and you kind of progress down the lane, and maybe somewhere you wake up and you find out your purpose, and sometimes people never find out their purpose.
Mm-hmm. So, you said it exactly right, and that was a good lead into my next slide here. First of all, if someone discovers their calling early in life, congratulations to you, although I'm willing to bet it will evolve over time, okay? I think a lot of it comes with experience and exposure. And so, in the context of discovering your purpose, again, think about some themes from your teen years. They may or may not make sense to you yet, but just think about those themes. Think about what you do that adds value to others and generates compliments from others, because that's where you are providing the greatest support, and where people are really valuing you. You may not realize it until you hone in on that. Ida, you've already mentioned, write down your goals. And here I'm just saying, write down your biggest dream, even if you can't figure out how to get there from here, but write it down. Keep track of those things that you desire to do. And be sensitive, being sensitive to how doors may open for you to do it. Also think about life experiences that have challenged you and how they've shaped you. Everything does not happen easily. In fact, most things don't happen easily in life. If you're into exercising, you only build up strong muscles through working that muscle hard and putting stress on it. And then it grows, and then it is built, okay? So as you challenge that muscle, you grow. As you look at the challenges you've had in life, those are growth opportunities for you, all right? So that's important to remember. And then just write down the things you do because you're passionate about them. Keep that in mind. You don't yet know how it will make sense to you. For me, my entrepreneurship journey, and again, I'm not saying that everybody is fit for an entrepreneurship. They are not. But there are pros and cons to it. From a pro standpoint, I get to focus on the work I enjoy most. I get to manage my own time. Now, for me, that means I work till 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and I'm perfectly fine with that, okay? That's when I'm awake and alert, and that's where I get ideas. Now, I'm not a 5 a.m. worker, okay? That's not when I'm alert.
That's not you.
Yeah. But, even, tomorrow's the kind of work holiday for, our Independence Day coming up. But I already have a number of projects that I know I need to spend tomorrow working on, and I'm fine with that. I'm happy, but it's managing my own time. And I have fully aligned beliefs and values with the work I do, okay? So those are the pros. The cons is I had to learn this whole thing about developing business. I used to just walk into work every day, and, there were lots of opportunities, lots of things to do, but now I have to develop business, find clients, build trusting relationships, and to the point of them hiring me to perform different projects. So that is not something that I look forward to or enjoy, but I had to find a way that suits me best to do it. And for me, it is developing trusting relationships. And then, quite frankly, don't worry about the rest. I just let God take care of the rest. I just try to develop trusting relationships. But also, I can't control the timing of business, when it will come. And I can't control the timing of payments, okay? I used to get a paycheck twice a month on the 15th and the 30th without fail. I knew how much it was going to be. Now, my payments can come at any point in time in the month.
That's true.
But it's, you can't predict it. You can't project it. So for me, some important factors, again, in this were the timing of when I became an entrepreneur. My husband and I were in a financially good position so that I could invest time in building up the business. I had years, decades of preparation to do what I am now doing. And the timing was such that if not now, when? Do it now, when I have time to really build it up and grow it into what I want it to be. Mm-hmm. So that's what made my entrepreneurship journey work. Now, everybody else will have a different story. Ida, you probably have a different story on yours too.
And it's funny you should say that because I've been an entrepreneur because I'm a child of an entrepreneur.
Oh.
And I just think that a lot of times children follow their parents, whether they want to admit it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been an entrepreneur. I didn't really recognize how important that was because I went into corporate America, and I have a tendency, being an entrepreneur with cowboy spirit, I go in and I rearrange things to fit me.
Very good.
In some companies, drives you crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I happen to work in smaller startup type companies that they actually prefer that they gave me the license to do whatever I kind of wanted to do within reason. Some of it wasn't reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so I recognized that I was an entrepreneur very early on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just said that the journey is when you say write things down, to write down your journey, because sometimes your journeys, whatever it is, it gives you clues to who you are
Mm-hmm.
that you may necessarily skip
Mm-hmm.
because you're not paying attention.
That's true.
How I even got into the education space is that I actually ended up getting a client who was a physician, and I actually was going to a party that he was having this big blast for his anniversary,
Mm-hmm.
and his nurse was my former next door neighbor.
Oh.
Now, the irony of it all, I was born and raised in Flint, Michigan, so this party occurred in Southfield.
Mm-hmm.
And my next door neighbor didn't know how to read. So at 15, I taught her how to read, but her daughter would follow me everywhere. I mean, she just loved me. She was like my Klingon, as I say.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to this party, you could imagine my stun and surprise when I see my next door neighbor, Ann. And when she called me by my middle name, I knew that she had to be from Flint because no one calls me by my middle name here locally.
Yes.
And I looked at her because when you get money, people look different. When they're in poverty and then when they finally get money, they look totally different, right?
Yeah.
And so when she said it, I looked at her, I wasn't quite who she said, "You don't remember me?" I said, "You look like Ann, but you just, you sort of look like Ann." She said, "Because I am Ann, right?" And I'm thinking, "But what are you doing here?"
Mm-hmm.
She's this doctor's nurse, right?
Wow.
And I was like, wow, because this is like years after I went away to college and then started a wealth management firm. It's been a few years, right? And I was like, wow, what are you doing? She said, "I'm a nurse." "Where?" She said, "For this doctor." I went, "Really? Explain to me how this went down." Because when I last saw her, she couldn't read. So we finally taught her how to read.
Yep.
And then she was pursuing a GED.
Mm-hmm.
So she went and got a GED. Then she went back to nursing school and became a nurse.
Wow, that's fantastic.
I was so stunned. So I just stood there. I didn't know what to say because I'm like speechless, right? So the doctor says, "We always thought you were a phantom of Ann's imagination because she talked about you all the time.
Really?
And here to kind of find out, you're my financial advisor."
Wow.
So sometimes you have to write down your journey because you never know how things happen and where they kind of put you in your place of calling. And so here I'm at a happy party, which should have been happy. And I'm crying like a person because I'm thinking about, oh my God, who would have thought when I taught this person how to read, that you would see 15 years later what the result would be. And then I said, "Well, how's my baby?" Of course, I'm asking about my baby, Nikki. She said, "She's at the Air Force Academy." So now I'm crying up a storm, right?
Oh, wow.
I got this family that was in the projects who I taught how to read. And then my little baby who Klingon ended up at the Air Force Academy. So I said, "What happened to her siblings?" Because she had older siblings. She said, "Well, she worried them so much that she was going to go to college like you, that they decided they were going to go to college." So I'm standing myself like, wow, who would have figured at 15, the little thing of me teaching this parent how to read and reading books to her child would accelerate 15 years and it would have this impact. So I cried for like 20 minutes.
That is phenomenal, the impact that you had on them, paying it forward. That's phenomenal.
But who would have known? And so I sat there and I went, okay, this person's hounded me about this alternative school that they wanted me to start. And that was my impetus to do it, because all of this happened in the 3 years that they were hounding me to do it. And when that happened, I was like, I guess maybe that is my calling. Although I like making the money.
Yep.
I like advising people on finances. I'm good at this. This is great, right? But that's what jarred me to move, because I had to examine my journey. Just didn't happen out of the blue.
Yeah.
The things are interconnected. They may not seem interconnected over time, but when you sit down and write it down, you see the interconnection.
That is wonderful. And so just like at 15, you were doing something that just came natural to you and you had no clue, again, what were you doing as a teenager? You had no clue the impact you were having on them and how it would play forward into your calling, okay? Everybody out there has some, I'll say a similar story, okay? You're doing something that's impactful. You're doing something that comes natural, that you just enjoy doing. And it doesn't make sense yet, but it can make sense in the future as you follow your purpose, as you follow your passion and understand what you were created to do.
Yes, that's true. That's awesome.
Absolutely. So one of the outputs that I have now is I'm now finishing my second book, Leader Vantage: 7 Essential Leadership. Yeah, it's like trying to just get everything done and get it out there. But again, this is part of, you know, the things that excite me, my passion, helping others to learn and grow and develop. And that's what just, you know, fuels me every day, and how I can help different clients. So
now let me ask you a question about your new book, because it's brand spanking new, I heard, right?
It's being released in August of 2002. There's been a little delay, but it's August. I'm sorry, 20 of August 20.
So let me tell you, what's the difference between this book and your previous book?
So first of all, the previous book is faith-based. This book is not faith-based, although if you know me, you know, that's kind of the underpinning to everything I do. A similarity is they both have brief lessons. And so one of the things I do right now is, as I mentioned, is I write leadership insights every month. So I packaged 50 of the best ones. And really I looked at what's the common theme about what I'm writing. And I identified seven common themes, things like purpose, perspective, values, leadership purpose, leadership perspective, leadership values, leadership traits, leadership ideas, leadership tools. And so I packaged them that way and weaved a story through it in the context of how can I help leaders develop? You know, how are these things important to how leaders fulfill their roles in their companies and bring their best selves to their work? And so it's something that you can read. I really suggest reading one chapter a day, no more than one chapter a day. And each chapter is 2-3 pages, okay? But the point is, it's chock full of tips and practical tools and perspectives to help you in your work. So really, once you read it, you need to pause and think about it. So that's why no more than one a day.
So my question is, are we able to pre-order the book?
You can pre-order right now on my website. Again, PriscillaArchangel.com/book. And in August, it will be for sale on Amazon as well.
Exciting. You know, I tell people, I always cheer people who write a book, because most people think that it's so easy to write a book. And a good book, it's not. It's years of preparation, and when you finally recognize that you've had the preparation, is now putting your thoughts to paper where they make sense to other people. And that is a process all its own. It most definitely is. That's right. I'm just so excited when someone tells me they wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books, because that means that they're very methodical and very organized and where they're going and where they've been. And that's so exciting to me.
That's right. That's right.
Secondly, I love books, and I don't know about everybody else, but one person said something to me that was so earth-shattering. Why would you spend 20 years learning something when you can go to somebody's book and they've already spent 20 years?
Interesting.
And so you save yourself a whole 20 years by reading their information. Very that they spent 20 years to develop and to package in a book. And so I read one book a week and have been since I was 8 for that reason. Because I just think that, you know, why waste my time? They've already put the time in. I'm also benefit from their practices and be able to save myself some time. So I'm actually going to get your book. I'm going to go on and pre-order it to see what you have to say.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And with that being said, I'm just so excited that we were able to have you today. It was so exciting from job to career to calling. And I would say to all of our viewers and listeners, do some research and discover what your calling is. And if you need some help, why don't you go pre-order Priscilla Archangel's book, Leader Vantage, and make it part of your library to help you as you process through calling. I'm also excited. This is our last Autoworkz Insights for the summer. So it's a good way to end, to have people go do some research and reflection on yourself. And so thank you for coming to us today. And we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your summer.